My name is Carlos Walker. This is Art and Hustle Black Authors Matter. And today we got Mr. Ben McBride. Peace and blessings, sir. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. It's really great to be in this space with you.
Look, it is an honor on my behalf. Look, so if you will, before we start, share a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, Ben McBride. I'm the co-founder of Empower Initiative. Spent 20 years living at the intersection of organizing, spiritual leadership, community development, and this last chapter for me has really been kind of the last 5 to 7 years, really being invested in leadership development. At the end of the day, what I'm really interested in and curious about is how do we create a world where everybody belongs. Including those with whom we might disagree with the most.
I love that idea. So you wrote a book, correct?
I did, yeah.
If you will, because that is the reason why we're here. Share what it is and your reason for writing it.
You know, actually, when I was writing the book, it is behind me, Trouble in the Water, the urgent work of radical belonging. I actually started writing this book somewhere around 2019. The kind of impetus of writing the book came from right as I was kind of making this transition between doing a lot of grassroots organizing and activism. I started really reflecting on my own journey into activism, into organizing, and really trying to think about what are some of the lessons learned that might create an invitation for somebody else to think about how they can find themselves at the intersection of change. But I was also at a unique intersection because I also, after 5 6 years in the front lines grassroots movement across the country, started realizing that it wasn't just that we needed to trouble the water around us in terms of getting in good trouble, disrupting the status quo so that we could widen the circle. But I also started realizing that in order to really do that, I had to be willing to trouble the water of my own heart,
Come
which
on.
meant I had to challenge my own sense of where is the circle too small in my own mindset and construct around all the different things that sometimes become culture war issues. And sometimes it can be very easy if you're like, yo, I'm a progressive or I identify this way. And so you feel like you have a certain perspective that there's no more room for your own evolution. And as I began to really reflect on this, I thought this could be a timely book. And so I wrote the first draft, was getting ready to drop it in the spring of 2020. The pandemic happens. George Floyd gets murdered in Minneapolis. I realized, well, I got to go back to the drawing board and change a couple things with the world that we're living in. So dropped it, got published by Broadleaf Books in 2023. And so it's really living at the intersection of how do you trouble the water, widen the circle in the world, but also how do you trouble the water of your own heart and widen the circle within yourself?
Um, the trouble in the water surrounding yourself. That's huge for me because I'm
Mm,
really big on self-development.
yeah.
I learned when you develop self, things around you change.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I mean, just for clarity, when I worked on me,
Mm,
the water got trouble, but it
mm,
started troubling for me, or it started working towards me.
mm.
So even with us as a community, yes, and this is to your point, being able to even be in community with people who don't think like you.
Yeah.
What is it that I have to work on dealing with me where I can still be in community with those that don't think like me? That is powerful. One, because it lets you know that everybody don't think the same.
Hmm.
But we still are meant to be in this world together. Otherwise, we wouldn't and commune with one another.
That's right.
So, if you will, speak a little bit towards that point.
Yeah, I've really been on my own personal journey, and I appreciate you inviting us into kind of that personal space because the way I was raised and in the world that I was raised, and I kind of hit some of this in the book, I wasn't raised to have a wide circle of human concern for people, right? And the dope and interesting and disruptive thing about that is that it was from very beautiful people who I still love, right? Parents, grandparents, people that grew up in my spiritual community, and people who I know meant the best for me, and yet they taught me certain things that actually was a threat to many other human beings who are seeking to live their lives in truth and in clarity and in transparency. And so a part of this journey for me had been, okay, what am I willing to unlearn,
Mm,
which doesn't dishonor the legacy of those who love me, but actually is an evolution and an invitation around what it is that I need to learn so that I can actually lean into the core ingredients of those things that I'm trying to unlearn, which is often about love and respect and kindness and mutuality and connectedness. And but it meant I had to go on a formative journey. And I kind of unpacked that in the book a little bit through stages around like what does that journey actually look like, right? The framework that I use in the book is called the 5 A's: awareness, accountability, articulation, advocacy, and activation. And what I really try to invite people to recognize is once you become aware that you're othering
mm,
another human being or group of people, the first move is not to get self righteous about it and then move to activation, which I'm really concerned is happening a lot in the movement space, on social media, in political spaces, in a lot of spaces, and not just progressive spaces, but I'm a progressive dude that spends time in the middle and also spends time with conservatives because I'm really in this personal journey to figure out what does it mean for me to be more human. But in this journey, I'm trying to say let's become aware of how we're othering. Let's take some personal accountability about how that has impacted other human beings on this planet. And then how do I learn with articulation how to speak about someone else's experience in a way that they would speak about it? How do I then begin to advocate for their thriving, not for my own? And then how am I then ready to activate others, not to be on the journey of what I just learned about, but actually to be activated about how to go through their own journey about self awareness so that they can begin to move in the progress that they want. I think if we can begin to retrain ourselves with this muscle memory, it's going to help us get to the goal that I'm really lifting up. And I was put on by one of my Muslim brothers that was my neighbor in Oakland, a brother named Bilal, who we stood in the middle of the street on 60th Avenue. And I was talking about unity. And he said, "Dear brother, I actually think unity isn't what we should be seeking. I think it's harmony." And that rang so true in my heart and my mind because with harmony, you think about music, right? You need a soprano, a alto, a tenor, and a bass to really get that full sound. And the beauty of the sound is not the soprano trying to be the alto being the tenor being the
doing what
bass.
they're called to do.
It's what they're called to do together. And we still like to hear each one. I'm a kid from the black church, so there's nothing like splitting them in and we hear the sopranos and the altos and the tenors. And if you got some bass, you throw that in. You like to hear that singular sound, but nothing beats that choir when they all get together and you get hit by the beauty of the diversity moving together in harmony. And so I think if we can work on ourselves, we'll never be able to create a choir impact on our own, but we can do it if we go on the journey of recognizing that as a straight person or a queer person or a Christian person or a Muslim person or a non-religious person, Pookie and Ray Ray from the block, along with whatever their names are in the academy, it takes everybody together to be able to create that impact. We got to go on the personal journey to figure out how to do that. And to me, that's the real work at the heart of this human moment.
Give me 1 second. Hold up 1 second. I'm gonna pause there. So you actually just said something real powerful when you were speaking about the Muslim brother talking about being in harmony.
Mm,
So I learned something. The body. The body has lungs, heart, liver. Every organ has a vital part that it plays.
mm,
The liver ain't trying to do what the heart do.
mm,
The heart ain't trying to do what the ears do.
right.
But it does its part. And for me, even for our community, the black community, thank God for everybody else's, but I learned that
Hmm.
we can appreciate them and thank y'all for doing what y'all do, but learning to work and have organizers that can look from afar and find out, okay, my Muslim brothers, y'all are brothers and sisters, y'all are little more structured uh than the Christian community.
Hmm.
I need that from y'all. Look at your Christian community. You know what? Y'all's faith may be a tad bit different than everybody else's because y'all believe in faith, but your structure may not be as good. But what I need to pick from that is how can we use that in whatever else y'all bring. There's the Hebrew Israelites or any group. Everybody brings and plays a major part in spite of what the different beliefs.
Hmm.
This community has your activists. They play a different part. Every part plays, but play your part. But you need to organize this because technically, if you think about us, we're not fully organized as a group. And it's for many reasons, not just of our own, but now we can make it our own.
Hmm.
I don't have to keep moving the way that to your point earlier when you were speaking about how your parents, you may have picked up some stuff from them. We ain't got to continue to move the way they move. Thank God they did give us an adverse way of looking. But now we can say this worked, that didn't. Let's now create and make this thing better in spite
Yeah.
of the differences for
Mhm.
everybody.
Uh, Man, I totally agree, and that's where I think the secret sauce in this is about bridging. And the way that I think about bridging is bridging doesn't mean agreement, and
Mm-mm.
it doesn't mean affirmation. Bridging to me is about acknowledgement. Can I acknowledge someone else's point of view, perspective, situatedness, as Dr. King used to call it? And I can acknowledge it. And in bridging, what I'm seeking to do is step into the shoes of someone
Mhm.
else across difference. So that doesn't mean I got to agree or affirm, but can I get in your shoes and at least be able to acknowledge, oh, okay, my sister, my brother, my relative, I see how you are approaching life in this way, your humanness in this way. And then how do I, to me, this is the deep spiritual work, is how do I tap into my empathy, particularly around that which I don't understand? And I can
Mhm.
say to myself, wow, I don't have this lens of experiencing the world. And I wonder what that's like for you. And so instead of me moving to judgment, I can actually move to curiosity and find better questions. That's not about extraction, but is about deep connection and saying, would you mind talking to me a little bit more about your experience? And I begin to see the world from your perspective, not just my own, which then with my empathy enables me to show up and we can co-create something that works for both of us because I'm not trying to be you and you're not trying to be me, but we are actually really getting that journey to be like, oh, okay, like, and I'm allowing my love, my empathy, and my connection, that the core part of me to lead instead of that lizard brain, that amygdala, which is often my fear,
Mhm.
how is my relationship with you going to affect my food, my safety, my security, and I think Black people are is as a community is a great case study because I do think we are the canary in America's coal mine. Like we tell
Mhm.
a story about the larger country. But to your point, like I think all of our relatives, white body, Jewish relatives, Asian relatives, Asian American relatives, Latino, Indigenous, Arab relatives, like this is a human dynamic. And so the more
Mhm.
that we are all willing to get curious about one another. Now, I come from the notion and how I was raised by my elders that charity or love begins at home, right? It starts within those closest around you, and then you can spread it
Mhm.
abroad. You can spread it elsewhere. So maybe for all of us, folks that are listening, be thinking about, okay, instead of imagining like the worst possible person that you would bridge with, it's like, okay, who's somebody that's close by that maybe there's a difference and I can bridge with that person, do that self work that you were talking about, go on that journey. And then if I can figure out how to build the muscle to do that, maybe I can figure out a way to do and build muscle over time. And sometimes to me, the bridges that we need to cross aren't outside our house. It could be across the hallway. We got
Mhm.
parents and children, aunties and nieces
Mhm.
and nephews and grandparents. Like there's a lot of healing that could happen if we found a way to, you know what I'm saying, get off the devices sometimes and get curious with each other.
So another question I want to ask: how has it been being an author? What has it been like? Because I do know you're a published author. When I said publish,
hmm
you're with a publishing company. How has that been? That journey been for you?
It was a cool journey. It was different. I didn't know anything about it. I appreciate that question. Nobody's asked me that, on one of these joints. But what I love about it is, as a black person entering into that space, initially I had a little bit of some intimidation. I'm not sure why. It just felt like a space to me that wasn't wide open or accessible all the time. But I found a few things that I think I could throw out really quickly. One, a literary agent really helps the process. And so
Mhm.
rather than, for folks that are interested in writing, rather than first trying to seek out a publishing company, my invitation is for folks to actually seek out a literary agent
Mhm.
because it's easier to connect with one person who might be able to really get what it is you're trying to do versus trying to relate to a corporation, which
Mhm.
keeping it all the way a buck in a capitalist system is trying to figure out how does what it is that you want to do really create the money that they need to generate in order to stay in business. So first thing I would say, my experience was having a literary agent was great. The second thing is positioning. And so I didn't find this agent. My experience was that they found me. But
Mhm.
what I found though was that for people that have a message and are seeking an author, position yourself. And so think about what are the how if you have a message, something, an idea you're trying to communicate, do as many as you possibly can that still sustains yourself. Forums, put yourself in the public. Don't turn down invitations to contribute. I think it will help you sharpen your message. It'll give you
Mhm.
a chance to test some of it with the audience and then put yourself out there because even when you go to a literary agent, you want to be able to talk about the places where your message has been. I also realize that literary agents go to these big conferences looking for ideas and voices and authors. And so sometimes how you position yourself can really help you. And then the other piece to me was just embracing the team dynamic of it, which was really
Mhm.
helpful to me. I had wrote a manuscript that I did, but because I wanted it to resonate with others, I put together a writing team. So I had some white bodied folks that I invited on my team to kind of help me with some revisions because I wanted to make sure that what it is I was contributing would be able to resonate with folks who may have had a different experience in life by nature of racial identity. I invited some dope black women into my writing team to help tamp down some of the not so obvious to me dynamics around misogyny and
Mhm.
sexism that could be living in my subconscious and me not be aware of that. And then, giving myself over to an editor to really help bring some final touches to it. So, those are just a few things I would throw out there that we don't have to Lone Ranger this. Really, being an author to me has been about how to take something from the brain and the heart and figure out how to put it in paper and an audiobook, which I got a chance to do, and then put it out there for public consumption and not be so married to just how much money can it make, but be a little bit more married to how can I put ideas and a message that I care about and I believe in out there into the public and see if it can do what it do.
How can you impact?
Yeah.
That. I mean, that's what I actually got from your wordage just then was how can I impact? It can make a lot of money. I
hmm
mean, as far as I know, there's a verse that says your gift will make room for you and put you before great men. It's gonna make
Talk.
money.
Yeah.
Especially if God gave the idea and you believe and nurture the idea is gonna do what the idea was called to do. And
hmm
make money, but then impact.
hmm
So before we go, I do want to ask you, if you will, I always ask people to give me a word of wisdom, but I'm trying to figure out how to address this other question before we get to the word of wisdom. What is your real impact that you want people to draw from this?
mm. From the book.
Yes. Or from your message, your book, your message from you.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the invitation for me is for people to think about how is your leadership, your contribution to this world that you inhabit contributing to the world 75 years from now?
Mm.
And what decisions can you make now that can impact the future that none of us will likely be around for, but we can leave the seeds of it? If I'm sitting in a car and I look out the windshield of that car, I can see 75 years in the future. But if I look in the rearview mirror, I see a 21-year-old Dr. King at Boston University in the rearview mirror looking at us. And we are only able to live the lives that we live, not just because of Martin, but all the many named and unnamed people who were 21, 22-year-old people who saw us in their future, and they laid seeds that have created the opportunity for us to blossom. I want to really encourage people to from whatever you can take from anything that I contribute, is to think about what's my faithful contribution to the moment that I've been born into, and what's the seeds that I can leave, so that 75 years from now, when they're behind the wheel and they look in that rear view mirror, they can be inspired by something that we did, someone we showed up for, a way that we loved, self work that we leaned into, external structures that we disrupted and rebuilt. They can find something that we did. So my invitation for people is, you ain't got to do everything. What's the something that you can do
Mm.
to widen the circle of human concern?
And before you tell them where they can purchase your book, give me a word of wisdom.
Man, a word of wisdom. Um, the word of wisdom is, um, you can't help anyone else until you first have committed to heal yourself.
Mm.
And my word of wisdom would be not distracted by the world, but be focused on healing yourself. Healing yourself is the most profound thing that you can do within a world that tells you to focus on production. So heal yourself.
There's a saying, it said, hurt people hurt people.
Mm,
My sister told me, healed people healed people.
mm,
So
mhm.
once you become, or as they say on a plane, first put the oxygen mask on yourself before you try to go help somebody else. Don't die trying to be a superhero when you got
1,000.
to be here in order to help. So
1,000.
last, let the people know where they can purchase your book, find you, everything in the above.
All of that. Would love to connect with folks. You can go to benmcbride.com. That's where you can find info about me. You'll find info about the book. There's a link there on that page. You can find the book anywhere books are sold, amazon.com. It's up there. I think they got it on the sale right now. So easy way to find, get that on the way to the house. And then for organizations that are trying to take a step and figure out how to implement this in your journey, we work in the public sector, private sector, community-based organizations, and religious-based orgs. Fosteringbelonging.org. Fosteringbelonging.org. You can find me at any one of those channels. Drop a note to us. We'd love to have a half-hour conversation with you just to see if there's alignment and harmony.
And harmony. So, with that, my name is Carlos Walker. This is Art and Hustle, Black Authors Matter. This is Mr. Ben McBride. Peace and blessings. Love y'all.